Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Melanin Mayhem podcast. You know where we give it to you just the way you like it with your favorite country girl, Renee Davis. If this is your first time pulling up to the House of Mayhem, go ahead and sit back and get prepared to cackle and talk a little shit with the country girl. I'm gonna tell you a story about a diabolical motherfucker. You gonna be entertained and informed, and then we gonna do this every Wednesday. And that's usually how this shit happens. And if you don't believe me, ask my crew, the fine members of the Noir Nation. They love this true crime shit, and I'm in steady rotation on their playlist because they don't play about me. And speaking of Noir Nation, hey boo. You see how my voice changed? That's cause I love y'all so damn bad. Feel like I wanna cook for you. And do. Y'all know I get in the kitchen every week and make a good old plate of mayhem from scratch every week. And this week, honey, I got a motherfucker for you that gotta be the most brutal beat down bandit that we have discussed thus far. I mean, this motherfucker did not come to play with his victims. He was violence on steroids, and his victims didn't stand a chance. His MO was to sneak attack his victims while they were either asleep or totally off guard and beat the brakes off their ass with a weapon you ain't even gonna believe. Now, I'm going to tell you, if you the type that sometimes leaves your door open for somebody or you regularly forget to lock your doors, I'm about to scare the shit out you with this one. So buckle up, buttercup, because it's going to be a wild one. So without further ado, bringing to the front of the congregation, this week's Melanin Mayhem maker is Mr. Gerald Parker, a.k.a. the Bedroom Basher. All right, fam, let's go ahead and get into it. Now, I don't have a lot of background information, and we used to that. That's nothing new over here. We're going to press on with pride, okay? Now, Gerald Parker was born in 1955 in Phoenix, Arizona. He was the eighth of 10 children born to his mother, Frankie Wagner Walker. Unfortunately, old Frankie died in childbirth trying to bring her 10th child into the world. And the daddy? Apparently, he jumped ship when Gerald was around 8 years old. His name is unknown. Now, Gerald lived with his granny after his mama died, but Gerald was a bit of a handful. Like, the nigga liked to get high at an early age. I mean, this little nigga was young when he was staying with his granny, right? And maybe he was trying to numb the pain of being an orphan or whatever, but the nigga got sent to juvie for sniffing glue. Who knew that was a thing? But I guess in the 60s, early 70s, it was a thing. Gerald would be bounced around a bit between juvie and random relatives until he got sent to this group home, wayward boys home type of situation where he stayed until he enlisted in the Marines in 1973. Now, I'm going to tell you, they couldn't have done any kind of drug test because according to Gerald, he been seeing spaceships on Bankhead since he was 7 years old. I'm talking about he started off sniffing glue, you know, that good old free high off of whatever you got in the house. And then he graduated to weed and to liquor and then on to LSD and heroin and PCP. Like, this nigga was a geek monster. This motherfucker say his daily routine was to drink a case or two of beer and a fifth of vodka every day. And plus whatever drug you might run into. Ooh, child. Well, Gerald, he served in the Marines from 1973 to 1979 without any issues. When he first went in, he was at boot camp in San Diego and at Camp Pendleton, also in California. And from there, he went to Alaska, where he did security for about a year. And then he went on down to North Carolina and Mississippi for a spell. Somewhere around in this time, he got some international exposure over in Vietnam and in Cambodia before arriving back in California in 1977. Now again, this nigga stay getting his drink on and his geek on, but he is functional, clearly, cause he's doing just fine in his career. He's only had one issue the entire time he's been in the military. They say he swung on one of his commanding officers for some shit, but they let that shit go. So no harm, no foul. But this nigga say he was injecting cocaine and heroin up to 5 to 6 times a day. Now, I'm going to tell you this. Around 1978, 1979, Gerald is a staff sergeant stationed at a base in Orange County. Now, also during this time, there is a steady occurrence of women getting fucked up in 3 different cities in Orange County: Anaheim, Costa Mesa, and Tustin, California. And I know all of our victims get fucked up, but these here particular victims, baby, they got super gremlin fucked up. I'm talking about a distinctive MO. Like, not gonna get these people confused with any of the other shenanigans that's going on. These poor women were beat in the head with a weapon that obliterated their faces. Yeah, big messy, big fucked upness. And the perpetrator got away with these crimes until 1996. So let's get into it, and I'm going to tell you about how it all went down. We're going to start off with 17-year-old Sandra Fry. Now, she had just moved into an apartment that she shared with a roommate in Anaheim, California. Well, on December 1st, 1978, her roommate is going to go out, and she leaves about 8 o'clock, but she come back in around 11 o'clock that night. When she gets in, she calls out for Sandra. She don't get no response. She goes into Sandra's room and sees her unconscious on the bed, naked from the waist down. Now her shirt is pulled up round her head and it's completely red. Honey, that's because her head is a bloody pulpy mess. Now the roommate, she calls 911, but it's too late for Sandra, honey. She gone to be with the king. Now come to find out, Gerald's ass was riding around when a random apartment complex caught his eye. So he parks, gets out, and decides to climb a fence and just start walking, looking for a victim. After about 4 or 5 apartments, he see a lady, Sandra, sitting at the kitchen table, just chilling. Gerald watches her for a few minutes, and then he snuck over to a window at her apartment that was open. So he in the window. He tipping. He come up almost on her before she felt his presence. Honey, she turned around, and before she could say anything, do y'all know Gerald hit her in the head with a 2x4 that he had picked up on his way in? Yes, I said a motherfucking 2x4. A block of wood. Y'all, to the dome. Like whop, 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 whop. And she down. You better believe she was down. Gerald said he drug her to the bedroom, put her on the bed, pulled her pants down, but he couldn't get nothing to happen with his man meat. So he just jacked and skeeted on her lady parts. And then he got up and dipped out the same window that he used to come into the house. Honey, he didn't steal nothing because robbery was not his ministry. Beating and raping a bitch, that was his thing. He got back in his car and drove back to the base. Okay, ooh, that was a lot. It's not often you come across a beatdown of such magnitude. Surely this was a one-off, right? It was until it wasn't, because the same thing happened to 21-year-old Kimberly Rollins. She had an apartment in Costa Mesa, California with 2 roommates. And on March 31st, 1979, her 2 roommates, they going out. They're not going out together, but they're both going out. So they leave, and then around 11:30, one of the roommates comes back to the house because she had forgotten her ID. Can't go party if you ain't got no ID, right? So the roommate, she's sitting there kicking it with Kimberly for a minute or two, and then she about to hit these streets. Well, as she's getting ready to go, Kimberly says that she's about to take a shower and then go to bed, and she know that the other roommate doesn't have her key, so she wants this particular roommate that's about to leave the door unlocked, because when she go to sleep, she ain't gonna want to get up. Okay. Well, the roomie leaves, and she leaves the door unlocked. Kimberly hits the showers and her bed in that order. Well, the roomie that the door was left open for, she didn't get home till around about 4:30 that morning. This is the wee hours of April 1st, 1979. She comes into the apartment, and as she is is heading to her room, she hears something. Sound like real heavy breathing. And so she opens Kimberly's door and she see her laying half out the bed in her bathrobe. And she like, damn, Kim, the fuck going on? Why you hanging out the bed like that? Honey, she flipped that light on and she see that Kimberly is fucked up. Like her face is damn near beat off her head. Her eyes is black and frothy shit coming out of her nose or what was left of her nose. Her ears is swollen. I mean, she just swole up all over. Kim is a mess and the roommate don't know what to think. Maybe whoever did this to Kim is still in the house. So she run out and she beating on a neighbor door and they call the police. The ambulance comes, but honey, Kimberly done went to the upper room. And the autopsies show that Kim got a 9-inch bust down from her left ear across the top of her skull. She had a 3-inch bust down on her right temple and a 2.5-inch gash over her right eye. Basically, somebody opened up a supersized can of whoop ass on Kimberly. Come to find out, this nigga Gerald, he was outside of the apartment when the first roommate came home and was standing outside the window listening to them talk. So while he ear hustling, he hears them talking about leaving the door open, right? Gerald said he left, he drove around for about an hour, and then he went back to that apartment complex to see if that door was still open. And it was. He took that shit as an invitation to let himself right on in. He tipping through the dark apartment, just tipping, looking. Baby, he opens up a door. He see a petite young thing laying on the bed. And he just so happened to have another 2x4 with him. So he took that opportunity to bop her in her head 3-4 times with that wood. Now, he can't remember if he gave her some of his wood because he said he was too geeked to keep up with all the details of the encounter. But the medical examiner found Gerald's semen on a tampon that was inside of Kimberly. So you's a nasty ass motherfucker that did put that meat to her. And I mean, I don't know why I would think a tampon would stop his ass from raping her when a beat-in, bloody-ass face didn't stop him. He left the apartment out the front door, tossed the 2x4 on the roof of the garage, and then he went back to the base like nothing happened. Well, 2 ain't no goddamn coincidence. This nigga get a nickname. It's the bedroom basher because this is legit what he doing. Bashing bitches in their bedroom. So check this out. 31-year-old Marilyn Carlton had a 9-year-old son, and they were living in an apartment in Costa Mesa, California. On September 14th, 1979, we talking like 5 months later, the resident manager just so happened to live next door to Marilyn, right? And this particular day, September 14th, he happens to be walking outside. He can't get to his house without going by Marilyn's, right? And as he passing by, he see that Marilyn's patio door is open, but the screen door is closed. And it looked like Marilyn laying on the floor asleep. Okay. I guess it could happen. Maybe she had had a hard day and just needed a little floor time instead of her bed, right? I mean, because it's around 11:45 at night, mind you. At some point in time in the wee hours of the morning, Marilyn's son say he is woke up to the sounds of his mama hollering and crying and calling out his name. He get up, and as he is walking to his mama room, he bump into a man in the hallway. And he asks the man, "What's wrong with my mama?" That punk ass Gerald ain't said shit to the boy. He just pushed him out the way and left the apartment. The little boy goes in his mama's room and he see her bleeding and babbling. He pick up the phone and he called 911 and the ambulance and the police come and y'all Marilyn is fucked up, but she ain't dead. They rush her to the hospital, but baby, her injuries were extensive and she joined the ancestral plane the very next day. Come to find out, this punk ass Gerald done climbed a wall and ended up by Marilyn's apartment. He see that the sliding glass door was open, so he went right on in with his trusted 2x4. He found Marilyn asleep in her bed, and then he did what he do. Wop, 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 wop. In the head with that wood. But then, once again, couldn't get his man meat to get into the game, so he just manually got himself off and left the evidence on Marilyn's lady parts. He would leave and then bump into her son. This nigga say, oh, I didn't know the little boy was in the house till it was too late. Too late? Sir, I have no words other than use a trifling ass, murdering ass murderer who murders. Ooh, you's a nasty motherfucker. Mm-mm. He left that woman's house and left her son scarred for life and then went back to the base like nothing happened. Mm. And I ain't done. September 30th, 1979, Gerald ran up on 20-year-old Diana Green in Tustin, California. Now, honey, this one is a tragic story. Diana and her old man had an argument. A bad one. Some things were said, and there was maybe even a laying on of hands. And the husband was like, fuck this, and fuck that, and fuck you, and I'm out. And he leave. Well, when he left, he didn't lock the door, and Diana didn't lock the door either. Diana's husband, Kevin, comes back around 2 o'clock in the morning. He walks into a literal crime scene. Honey, he walked in and Diana is in the bedroom, naked as a jaybird, legs spread from California to New York. And she is barely breathing, and she got a 2-inch hole in the middle of her forehead. This nigga done opened up her third eye, like you can legit see her brain meat, blood, airwell, on the bed, on the floor, on the walls. The husband, he hysterical. He called 911 like what the fuck? So the ambulance and the police show up. And because of how that hole looked in the middle of her head, they think Diana been shot. They get her to the hospital. They even do a rape kit and they get her stabilized a little bit. And she is in a coma for 10 days. Now, Diana Green lived. Her unborn baby didn't. She was 9 months pregnant, so the baby was full term and it was delivered stillborn. The baby was named Chantel Marie Green. Now, they questioned Diana's husband, Kevin. He tells them that they had argued, he left, and he ended up at a hamburger stand, and he showed them the receipt from the restaurant and everything. They go to the hamburger stand, and an employee verified that Kevin had been there. Kevin hadn't even eaten the food by the time he got back to the house and found Diana, so they see he got a bag of food and it's still warm. But the police, they don't know exactly what Diana was beat with, but they think it was either a mallet or a baseball bat or something like that, and it's gonna be a miracle if Sister Girl lived. Well, miracles do happen, and Diana woke up. But she had amnesia. Can't remember shit, nothing, and nobody. So when the police questioned her, she couldn't tell them anything about what had happened to her. But oh baby, the police, they told Diana what they thought happened to her. They think her husband did it because it's always the husband, right? They said y'all argued and it got ugly. Kevin took it too far and tried to cut your water off. And besides that, there were no signs of forced entry. So who else came in the house? And you know what? This became the story. And guess what else? Diana rocked with that version of the story and blamed the man that she couldn't even remember as the person that viciously attacked her and caused the death of their daughter. Now, I need you to understand, don't think that because Diana came out of that coma that she was fine, because she wasn't. Diana was fucked up, just like you should expect somebody to be who has been beaten in the head with a bat. I mean, Diana would spend years learning how to walk and talk all over again. She would never be the same woman she was pre-beat down. Now, Gerald, when it all came out, he said he was drunk, riding around, parked at a random apartment. He hear a couple arguing. He sees a man leave and get in his car and drive off. Gerald said he pulled off too. He drank some more and drove around for about an hour, and then he drove back to that apartment complex. Dude's car was still gone. He walks right in the front door, so he tipping, he looking around, and apparently the dude is a Marine too because Gerald can see all the Marine memorabilia around the house. You are doing this to a fellow Marine's wife. You don't give two shits though, do you? Nope. Because he go to the bedroom and he see a woman all big and pregnant. So what he do? Wop, 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 wop. Upside her head with a board that he found outside somewhere. And then he raped her while she lay there bleeding from that hole in her forehead with blood coming out her eyes and out her nose and out her ears. And when he was finished doing his business, he got on up, left right back on out the front door, and went back to the base like nothing happened. Y'all do know that the cops arrested Diana's husband, Kevin Green, who, let me make it clear just in case you don't know by now, is a whole white man. They charged him with second-degree murder for their baby Chantal and for attempted murder for Diana. Not only was he arrested, this motherfucker was tried and convicted as the man who beat his wife and killed his kid. Y'all ain't even gonna believe that Diana testified against him, all loud and wrong. Honey, you can't even remember nothing. How is you even on the stand? How is this not reasonable doubt? Baby, they convicted that man and sent his ass to prison. But if I just told you Gerald fucked Diana up, clearly husband Kevin didn't do it. But he spent 16 years in prison until DNA linked Gerald to Diana's attack. This motherfucker went up for parole several times. He could have been got out of prison. All he had to do was act remorseful for doing this crime. And he couldn't do it because he didn't do it. So he was always denied parole. And when it came out that, oh, this nigga was actually telling the truth, all they had for him was, oops, our bad. Nigga, what? I can't. I just can't. And I'm not done. Because next up, we have 24-year-old Deborah Kennedy that lived in Tustin, California with her sister. On October 6, 1979, her sister and a friend dipped out. They finna go handle some business, right? And the sister didn't get back until the next day, October 7th. It's around 6 o'clock that evening. And when she pull up, the front door open. Y'all know this is never a good sign. She walks in, and her sister is in her room, legs spread from Alaska to Mexico, laying on a mattress that's just completely soaked with blood. Deborah, too, had her head used as a pinata, like this nigga was busting them down to the white meat every motherfucking time. Deborah got a gash that go from above her right ear around the back of her head all the way to the other side. The coroner said somebody had just stood over her and just whop, 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 whop her with something like a baseball bat or a pipe or a 2x4. Who we know like using them goddamn 2x4s? And the police say that there are no signs of forced entry, but there was a window open in the back. Come to find out, Gerald pussy punk ass seen that open window and decided to pop in and see if there was a woman in need of a beatdown. He grabbed a mallet at the back of his truck, climbed in that window. He sees Deborah sitting on the floor, asleep in front of the sofa, the TV watching her. So what does he do? He commenced to going upside her head with that mallet. And then he raped her while she was gasping her last breaths. That's just diabolical. Like, who the fuck does this? Rape is violation enough. But to open up a can of whoop ass on somebody that is asleep, man, that is as cowardly as it comes. And this has also unlocked a new fear for me, right? Because I personally don't mind going to glory in my sleep, but I want that shit to be peaceful. You understand me? Just let me go to sleep and wake up with Jesus. Not wake up to get my ass beat with a pipe or a goddamn 2x4. And understand, this motherfucker is swinging like a champ. We ain't talking about no baby taps here. This nigga was Mike Tyson with a 2x4. There was pressure and power behind each and every one of them whops. That shit hurt. And those women felt all that shit and more. You laying here dying. Your face is obliterated. You are choking on your own blood. And a motherfucker is on top of you raping you. And then when he get through, he just leaves you to bleed out. Like, who knows how long that shit took? That's cold-blooded, sadistic, and downright disgusting. But here's the thing, y'all. These crimes are hella specific in their nature. Like, why the fuck hasn't the police found the killer? Why aren't they out here warning the public to lock their doors and their windows because somebody is out here beating the brakes off of women that are alone in their homes? But no, there was none of that. There's no pattern. Kinda, sorta, just yet. And I'm gonna tell you, This next killation comes with a PSA. And the PSA is when we go somewhere together, we leave together. And I know that my audience is majority melanated cuties who was raised on this, but just in case, we got a few in the number one more time that ain't up on this little good piece of game. That is the rule for when the girls, plural, girls, when we go out. Ain't nobody going off by themselves. If one leave, we all leave. Period. And know your crew. If you know that you like to close the doors of the church, don't be going out with chicks that like to be going home before the street lights come on. I'm just saying. Okay, that's enough of the PSA. Now let me tell you what had happened was. On October 20th, 1979, 17-year-old Deborah Lynn Sr. and her friend, also named Deborah, so for clarification, we'll call her D2. Deborah and D2, they go to a party in the valley in D2's car. At some point, Deborah was ready to go, and D2 wasn't ready to go. So Deborah took D2's car around 10:30 that night and drove back to their apartment in Costa Mesa, California. Now, D2 stayed at the party. Around 2 o'clock, she catch a ride with somebody, get back to her apartment around 2:30 in the morning. First thing she hear when she get there is music playing out loud and shit. She come in, all the lights on, and Deborah is laying on the floor in a pair of socks with a towel wrapped around her neck. Her face, her head all bleeding and busted open and shit. Her clothes is all ripped. So D2, she called 911 and the ambulance and the police come. And baby, it's too late because Deborah don't live here anymore. Her address has been forwarded to heaven. The crime scene techs get there and they got some footprints on a gas meter outside of a bathroom window. They got a shoe print on a bar of soap in the tub that the nigga stepped on when he came in the window. And they got a handprint on the windowsill. The coroner get there and he like, shit, look like somebody went upside her head with a pipe or a baseball bat or a 2x4. Shit, y'all ought to be tired of saying that because we done heard this shit before, right? The bedroom basher strikes again. Now, this nigga Gerald, what he say happened was that he was riding around hunting, and he decides riding around ain't getting it, so he park and he get out and start jogging to kind of blend into the neighborhood, you know? And while he was jogging, he's scoping out the windows, and he literally just picked Deborah's window at random. It seemed like a good place, so he went in through the bathroom window and waited for anybody to come home. And about 20 minutes later, after he had been in his house, here come Deborah. Now, Gerald pussy punk ass is hiding in the bathroom, and he is watching Deborah. He watch her come in. He watch her go in the kitchen. He watches her fix a drink. He watches her go into the living room and chill. He watches her fall asleep. And then he came out the bathroom and did what he do. Hit her with the whop, 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 whop. Just going upside her head with another 2x4 5 or 6 times. He say he picks her up, he carried her to the bedroom, and proceeded to rape her. And when he finished his business, he got up, went back to the base like nothing happened. And the bedroom basher has struck again. Now, at this point, all these white women coming up monkey stomped in their beds warranted a task force, and it was made up of law enforcement from all of the cities where these women were being Donkey Konged. But clearly they weren't making any kind of headway in the case because the bodies were still dropping. But yet and still, even though Diana's attack and the murder killation, if you will, of her unborn child fit the profile, they one-offed her ass and pinned that shit on her husband. How sway? Because that's what they did and that's what they do when ain't nobody looking. Well, at this point, Gerald is starting to spiral, I think. Just a little bit. And on February 2nd, 1980, a woman named Ada Demirjian, she was minding her own business, about to do a little retail therapy, you know what I'm saying? And as she's getting in her car, she's about to close the door, a man pop on her and start beating her in the head with a pipe. She is stunned. Like, she thinks if I play dead, maybe he'll stop. Oh no. This nigga drags her out the car and continues the beatdown. And she realizes, wait a minute, this nigga is really trying to take me to the king. So she starts screaming. Oh, she's screaming her head off. She jumps up and she tries to run. Screaming and running, screaming and running. Baby, she had a praying grandmother and some Shakari Richardson feet don't fail me now. Cause honey, she got away. She fucked up, make no mistake about it, but she alive and she is able to give the police a description of her attacker. Okay. She fits the description of a series of attacks that we got going on, and she has lived to tell us about it. But you think the police linked her assault to the bedroom basher? Nope, they sure did not. And this next one, it's a goddamn sin and a shame before God what this slimy, trifling ass nigga did next. On February 15th, 1980, just 2 weeks after he fucked up Ada, he assaults and rapes a child. Yes, that motherfucker did. And if that wasn't bad enough, how about the day that he snatched up 13-year-old Paula was the day of her daddy's funeral. Ain't that a low-down, stinking ass, waste of flesh ass, punk ass motherfucker? Not on the day of the funeral? Diabolical, I tell you. So yeah, Paula, she went to her father's funeral. Her father was in the Navy. They were really close. So she's all emotional and shit. But February 15th is also her mother's birthday. So she want to go to the store and buy something nice for her mom, right? So she headed out. She go to the store. She really don't see nothing she want. She really ain't in the right headspace. So she just gonna go on ahead and go back home. As she is headed back home, she walks by a dark colored van. All of a sudden, a man pop out that van and punch her dead in her face. Snatched her up and throwed her in the van. He ties her up and gags her, and then he drives off. He finds a secluded spot, and then he rapes her. And when he get through, he tells her, if you tell somebody, I'ma kill you. And then this audacious motherfucker drove her back to where he kidnapped her from and let her get out the van. Now, little Paula, she don't know what to do. She just wandering around crying and shit, but her mama felt like something was wrong and she had sent her brother out to go looking for her. He finds her wandering around just all hysterical and he brings her back home. Baby, mama handled her business and got the police involved, and Lil Paula was able to give a full description of the man and the van he was driving. She told the police that the man had shiny shoes just like her daddy, the military polished up to a high sheen kind of shoes. Oh, so this nigga a soldier. That drive a dark colored Dodge van. Okay, we got something to work with here. Now understand, he didn't beat Paula like the rest of his victims. I mean, yeah, he did pop her one time, but this is not his normal King Kong beat down kind of shenanigans. And maybe it was because she was so young. And maybe he decided, I don't know, to let her keep her face. I mean, for me, I really do think the nigga was spiraling because he is completely off his signature. This ain't your MO. This pussy ass nigga sneak attacks women in their homes when they're not expecting to be dog walked in their sleep. Gerald don't square up on nobody in the broad daylight. I think he wanted to get caught. And baby, your wishes are my command because that is exactly what happened. The police got to work and they found that ass. And February 18th, 1980, this nigga was in custody for raping Paula. And while he was there, they realized that he was the same man that did Ada's beat down. So now we got you for assault and for rape. Okay. Now we know that Gerald was in the Marines, and at some point in time around this time, he gets kicked out of the Marines because he caught some felonies. And yeah, them last two ladies, that's the felonious shenanigans, the rape and the beatdown robbery. That's what got him kicked out the Marines. So understand, yes, Gerald's punk trifling ass did get caught for a couple of crimes. Yes, the crimes were heinous, but not now damn murder. They don't know that he the one that's been beating the brakes off these women's faces. So yeah, whoop-de fucking do. He about to do an aggravated assault bid, but he gonna get out. That shit ain't gonna hold him in the pen for the rest of his life like he need. They gave him 6 years for the rape and 12 years for the robbery beatdown. But I guess we just gonna have to live in the moment of peace that comes for the next 15 or so years. Well, while he was in prison, he had an occasion to spend a little time with the shrinks, and he told them that he had always had thoughts of raping women. Nigga, you had more than thoughts. You did some shit. And when they asked him why he never had a girlfriend or a wife, his response was that, quote, I suppose I couldn't get along with women too good. Nigga, that's the understatement of the century, cause your pull-up game is deadly. You don't give a woman a chance to even see your ass. But the shrinks, they think they shrinking you for some level 1 or 2 type of shenanigans. They don't even know the depths of your depravity. Like, nigga. Now, I'm gonna tell you, the story gets real vague around here. It appears that Gerald got out at some point. When exactly, I couldn't figure out, but he's got additional charges for stupid shit like write bad checks and more assaults. I mean, he kept going back to prison after he went to prison for that rape and assault. And that doesn't surprise me. We've seen how the sentencings are just a suggestion back in the 70s and 80s. It's kind of like a stop sign or the speed limit or a yellow light in Atlanta. This is what we would like for you to do, but whatever you think is enough is fine. You know what I mean? So Gerald is in and out of jail for all mannerisms of bullshit because he ain't got his cushy job on the base no more, and his money is all kind of funny. And for all intents and purposes, Gerald is homeless and he is getting by. However, but yet and still out here sexually assaulting women and getting caught because at some point in all of this, he gets popped for forcing a woman to give him some sloppy toppy at knife point. Can y'all make this make sense? If a nigga shenan once, he will shenan again, and again. At some point, just keep these motherfuckers locked up for our safety. Like, how many times a motherfucker gotta strong arm a bitch before the law say enough is a goddamn enough? You just ain't gonna stop. Well, I guess we ain't figured out what that number is yet. So Gerald is out on parole. He gets popped. He goes back to prison, and now he's at a prison in Tehachapi, California, and it's like 1983, 1984ish, right? Well, a man named David Feuderdot is Gerald's cellie. And I don't know what went wrong, but honey, on February 13th, 1984, Gerald took a steel to this man's head while he was asleep. I guess old habits die hard. Well, David was able to get Gerald up off him and get out the cell where he collapsed because Gerald had really busted him in the head to the white meat. Old David was in the infirmary for about a week trying to get right after the sneak attack. Well, they gave Gerald a little bit more time added to his prison stay. Now, at some point during this revolving door of in and out of prison, Gerald did get a cheek swab and his DNA is entered into the database. Well, honey, in 1996, the nigga hit the DNA lottery. His numbers coming up all over the place. Hot damn, the police finally know who the motherfucking bedroom basher is. I guess 16 years later. Okay. Now all they got to do is find this motherfucker. And in a continued streak of luck on the law side, this pussy punk ass nigga Gerald is already in state custody. They ain't even gotta go far to find this nigga. In June of 1996, they pulled Gerald out his cell and they spread out all the pictures of the victims and they asked him so nicely, Gerald, did you do this? And Gerald, after a little bit of prodding, he copped to it all. Yep, that was me. Well, all right then. Let's wrap these cold ass cases up with a signed confession and get ready to crank up the jury. Now, as Gerald was already in prison when they found him, they just let his ass sit there to the trial, which would be another 2 years away, right? October 5th, 1998, it is finally time to lay these old ghosts to rest. And in a Santa Ana courtroom with George Francisco Brasino, the jury was made up of 9 women and 3 men. Honey, the prosecution laid out all of the evidence, which was a shit ton of DNA, semen samples left in all of these women. They had a handprint that matched Gerald from Deborah Sr.'s killation. I mean, they had a pretty airtight case for some cold cases. And the defense that Gerald put up was, I'm a drug addict with a troubled background with a few mental issues. And while Gerald did not deny that he was the one monkey stomping and raping and killing, but because he was high as giraffe pussy, he wasn't in control and probably really didn't mean to do it. Nigga, what? I mean, when you ain't got shit else to say, I guess there's a reason why a degenerate killer kills, but we ain't going for that shit. The defense put a few people on the stand, like his roommate. His roommate said that he and Gerald were in the Marines together and they got geeked together sometimes, but that he had never seen Gerald lose his temper or get into a fight. And in his opinion, he didn't think that Gerald had a drinking or a drugging problem. Well, guess who else got on the stand? Gerald. Yes, honey, he jumped his ass on the stand to say that he was on his meds now and they kept him from wanting to take a bitch's face off. But he also said under cross-examination that he knew that what he was doing was wrong as fuck, but it didn't stop him. And he also agreed with the prosecution that if he hadn't been arrested and put in a cage after raping Paula, that he would have continued on his rape and kill spree. Okay, well, that was enough for the jury, honey, because on October 20th, 1998, they found that ass guilty of all 6 counts of first-degree murder. Honey, it took them about 2 hours to get on one accord. Yeah, you did that shit. And now it's off to sentencing. And that would happen November 11th, 1998. And at the sentencing, it was time to decide whether we were going to do life or we're going to cut this nigga water off. Because this motherfucker had negacity in spades. Like, he took his beating, raping, killing, trifling ass on the stand one more time to ask somebody for mercy. Somebody should have advised this motherfucker to remain silent. He get on the stand, he said that he's sorry for fucking all these women up and that he felt bad after each and every one of them monkey stompings, but just not bad enough to stop. But if y'all don't mind, can y'all have mercy on me? If you don't get your punk ass off that goddamn stand and get ready for the reckoning that's coming your way, niggatry, I tell you, fucking niggatry. The next motherfucking day, though, November 12th, 1998, it took the jury all of an hour to make it official. Nigga, you guys to die. You can't stay here no longer. Well, all right. It's off to San Quentin you go to wait on the needle stick. Gerald Parker is inmate number J10319. This motherfucker is 69 years old and is property of the California Medical Facility in Vacaville, California. We talking 27 years after his death sentences. This nigga is yet and still holding on, breathing God's good air. Why is this nigga still alive? Like, can somebody tell me? You've been killing since 1979. We're talking about 46 years. We got to do something about this. Like, when we got DNA evidence, the death penalties need to be carried out. Like, that don't make no sense. 46 years later, these women are ashes to ashes and dust to dust, and your ass is still here with 3 hots and a cot? I cannot. But here's the thing, I'm going to add insult to injury. There are women that fit the pattern of attacks but couldn't be added to the indictment because the statute of limitations had run out for attempted murder. First of all, why is there even a statute of limitations anyway? If a motherfucker is trying to kill me, first of all, it's on sight if I ever see that motherfucker. Second of all, trying to kill a bitch is just as bad as successfully killing a bitch. But yeah, there is a woman that got mollywopped in 1980 and lived to tell the tale. Just like everybody else, Kim was in her bed asleep one night, woke up to a motherfucker beating her face in. Somehow she was able to get away before he could finish her off, but it was bad, y'all. Just like the rest of the victims, she was fucked up. Both her cheekbones, her nose, and the bone under her left eye broke. Her left ear was damn near ripped off her head. She was like a real life Mrs. Potato Head. They had to put her shit together with super glue and wire. And of course, our girl is PTSD for life, right? I mean, think about it. A motherfucker beat you out your sleep every time you close your eyes. The anxiety of it all. Honey, Gerald was a nightmare. And in many cases, our serial offenders are some down on their luck, homeless, or living off of others kind of situations. Not always, but a fair number of them are. But Gerald, even though he tried to paint this picture of somebody that was just out of it all the time, he had a very serious job in the military while he was doing all this shit. This nigga was in charge of the heavy transport helicopter squadron, meaning that he was the man that made sure all of the helicopters were ready to helicopter the hell out some shit, right? Flight plans and fuel calculations, serious shit. Yet you want us to believe that you was blackout geeked all the time? Every time you ran up in a bitch house and didn't leave a trace behind other than your baby battle? Nah, son, you were calculated, you had a high stress job, and this was how you blew off steam, beating and raping and murdering women. He was in full control of his desires and in full control of his viciousness. You were a Marine, active motherfucking duty. You reported to duty every day as scheduled. Nobody saw anything in you that suggested that you were unhinged. 'Cause you weren't. And ladies, that's some scary shit. And that, Noir Nation, is the story of Gerald Parker, the bedroom basher. Lord have mercy. Let me go make sure my door is locked, honey. I swear, I ain't never checked my locks like I have this week while I'm researching this story. Had a bitch a little nervous. What about y'all? Tell me all about it on social media, baby. I am Melanin Mayhem Podcast on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook, and I am Melanin Mayhem PC on X. If you feel like sending me an email, I take those too. You can hit me up at melaninmayhempodcast@gmail.com. And please don't forget about the wonderful private discussion group on Facebook. We get it in over there, and they always hear the news first. You can find that discussion group by searching Melanin Mayhem Podcast Discussion Group on Facebook. Ask to join. I promise you I will let you in. Now, this week's Noir Nation shout out goes to Natasha Fisher. Natasha says, quote, I just love the way you talk. I first heard you in my Uber and I had to ask, who is this? This is my first podcast that I have consistently listened to. You are doing a fantastic job, and I'm going to hate when I catch up to the current episodes. Well, Natasha Fisher, thank you for your kind words and for loving this pod and for your streams, baby. Trust and believe I am working to bring you guys additional content, so never fear, your favorite country girl is here. And I'm always in the lab cooking up all kinds of fuckery and nagacity for your listening pleasure. And can I just pause for a minute and say to the Uber drivers who are pumping me out while y'all out here picking up the peoples, y'all doing the Lord's work. And I appreciate that. That's like real love. Keep up the good work. Man, I hope that y'all have enjoyed this week's episode. And y'all know I cannot wait until we chop it up again. But until then, stay safe, stay vigilant, and remember, if you stay ready, you ain't gotta get ready. It's one love, Noir Nation, and the country girl is out of here.